to dig up the main ideas. I'm Sparky, and we're about to fetch a quick summary of Unlocking the Jewel, a comprehensive guide to Belizean tourism and history.
I can certainly do that. While the book spells them Kais, I'll use the term keys from here on out to keep things clear for you. These island destinations, like the famous Ambergris Key, are central to Belize's appeal and sit right atop the massive barrier reef. They are essentially the same geographical feature, just with a different local spelling. Using keys helps us visualize these tropical spots as we dive deeper into the guide. Now, let's continue with our summary. When visitors first arrive in Belize, they often carry a mix of excitement and apprehension, sometimes influenced by negative stories or warnings about safety. This is where the tour guide enters the picture, playing a role that is far more significant than simply pointing out landmarks. A guide is an enlightener, a cultural ambassador who has the power to transform a visitor's entire perspective on the country. By sharing their knowledge, positive attitude, and professional skills, a guide dismantles those initial fears and replaces them with a deep appreciation for the beauty and warmth of Belize.
The goal is for a guest to leave not just having seen a site, but having truly felt and tasted the culture. Whether it is through a shared meal, a conversation with a local, or a guided hike through an archaeological site, the guide is the bridge between the visitor and the authentic Belizean experience. This personal connection is the foundation of word-of-mouth marketing, which is perhaps the most influential force in the tourism industry. In our modern world, word of mouth isn't just a spoken recommendation, it's a digital footprint.
When a tourist has an unforgettable experience, they share it on Facebook, Instagram, and travel review sites. They tell their family and friends that the food was fantastic, the sights were breathtaking, and the guide made them feel like the country was their own. These personal stories act as a powerful magnet, attracting new visitors who trust the lived experiences of their peers more than any government advertisement. Because tourism is Belize's leading industry and primary source of foreign exchange, this cycle of positive feedback is essential for the nation's economic health.
However, this influence comes with a heavy weight of responsibility. Within the organizational structure of tourism, there is a symbolic pyramid. At the base, you have the products, the infrastructure, and the administrative bodies like the Ministry of Tourism and the Belize Tourism Board, which manage the marketing and local regulations. But at the very tip of that pyramid sits the tour guide. While the government handles the big picture strategy, the guide is the one spending 80% of their time with the visitors. This means the guide is the primary factor in whether a tourist's impression is positive or negative. A single act of unprofessionalism or a lack of respect for the environment can have a devastating ripple effect, potentially harming the reputation of the entire industry. Conversely, a dedicated guide who is conscious of their impact can ensure the industry thrives. Ultimately, tourism is a people-driven business, and the guide's ability to inspire others is what keeps the world of Belizean tourism turning in a successful and sustainable way.
Belize sits in a truly unique spot, perched on the east coast of Central America and nestled on the southeastern side of the Yucatan Peninsula. To get a clear picture of its boundaries, you can look to the north, where it is bordered by Mexico. To the east, the country meets the vibrant blue of the Caribbean Sea. If you look at a map in terms of global coordinates, Belize is positioned between 15 and 18 degrees north latitude and 87 to 89 degrees west longitude. These specifics are not just numbers. They help us understand the nation's tropical setting and its strategic relationship to both North and Central America.
When we look at the physical size of the country, it is surprisingly compact yet incredibly diverse. From north to south, stretching from the tip of the Corozal district down to the southernmost point in the Toledo district, Belize measures approximately 174 miles in length, which is about 280 kilometers. At its widest point, from east to west, it spans 68 miles, or roughly 110 kilometers. In total, the land and inland water area cover 8,867 square miles.
To put that in perspective for those using the metric system, that is about 22,923 square kilometers. But the geography of Belize is about more than just the mainland. Its territory includes over 200 islands, known locally as Kais, which are scattered all along the coastline.
You might recognize names like Ambergris Cay or Cay Caulker, which serve as major hubs for visitors. But there are also smaller, pristine spots like Laughing-Bird Cay. These islands are an essential part of the nation's identity and its geographic footprint within the Caribbean.
What makes this space even more interesting is how it is populated. With a current population estimated between 400,000 and 450,000 people, Belize has a remarkably low population density. On average, there are only about 14 people per square kilometer across the country. If you head out into the countryside, that number drops even further to just 5 people per square kilometer. This is a stark contrast to some neighboring nations in the region where you might find thousands of people living within the same amount of space.
This low density is one of the primary reasons why so much of the country remains untouched. In fact, 70% of Belize is still covered in natural vegetation. Furthermore, nearly 47% of the land is protected by law, ensuring that the natural landscape remains preserved. This balance of a small, diverse population and vast, protected wilderness truly defines the geographic character of the jewel.
When we look at the engine that drives the Belizean economy, one industry stands clearly above the rest. Tourism is not just a part of the local landscape, it is the country's leading industry and the primary source of foreign exchange. To understand the scale of its importance, we have to look at how it compares to other traditional sectors. For many years, Belize was primarily known for its agricultural exports, like sugar, citrus, and bananas. We also have thriving aquaculture and livestock sectors, including lobster, shrimp, and cattle.
However, when you look at these industries individually, none of them generate the same level of revenue as tourism. Even when you collectively group various agricultural products together, tourism remains the #1 contributor to the national economy. The concept of foreign exchange is vital here. Because tourism attracts visitors from all over the globe, it brings international currency directly into the Belizean market, which provides the financial stability needed for the country to grow. It is the lifeblood of the nation's gross domestic product.
But this economic success isn't just about the beauty of the reefs or the height of the Maya temples. It is deeply tied to the people who facilitate the experience. In the organizational structure of Belizean tourism, there is a metaphorical pyramid. While the Ministry of Tourism and the Belize Tourism Board provide the marketing and infrastructure, it is the tour guides who sit at the very tip of that pyramid. This is because tour guides spend roughly 80% of their time with the visitors.
From the moment a guest arrives to hike a trail, paddle a canoe, or explore an archaeological site, the guide becomes the face of the country. The economic health of the nation literally rests on the shoulders of these professionals. If a guide provides an enlightening and beautiful experience, the visitor leaves with a profound impression. They go home and tell their friends, they post on social media, and they write positive reviews. This is the power of word-of-mouth marketing, which is the most effective and sustainable form of advertising in the industry. When a guest tells their family that the food was fantastic, the sights were breathtaking, and the people were welcoming, they are essentially recruiting the next wave of visitors. In this way, every positive interaction is an investment in Belize's future. Conversely, the industry is also incredibly sensitive. A single negative incident or a lapse in professional ethics can go viral and damage the reputation of the entire country. Because the world is so connected through social media, the economic stability of the tourism sector depends on maintaining high standards and a positive image.
In short, tourism is the heartbeat of Belize's economy, and its continued success is fueled by the knowledge, attitude, and skills of those working on the front lines every day.
To understand how the tourism industry in Belize actually functions on a day-to-day basis, we have to look at the organized network of people and agencies that keep the gears turning. Think of this structure like a pyramid. At the very top of the formal hierarchy is the Ministry of Tourism. This is the government body led by the Minister of Tourism, who holds the ultimate responsibility for the industry's strategic vision. The ministry sets the broad policies and long-term goals that dictate how Belize will grow as a destination, ensuring that tourism aligns with the country's national interests and economic needs. Just below the ministry, Serving as the primary executive arm is the Belize Tourism Board, commonly known as the BTB. If the ministry is the brain, the BTB is the hands. They handle the heavy lifting of marketing Belize to the rest of the world, but they also manage the local infrastructure. They are responsible for the licensing of tour guides and operators and ensure that everyone meets specific professional standards. While the ministry looks at the big picture, the BTB focuses on the dynamics of the local tourism network, making sure the product being sold to international visitors is high quality and consistent.
Beyond these government bodies, we have a variety of private sector associations that represent the interests of those working in the field. One of the most prominent is the Belize Tourism Industry Association, or BTIA. Then you have more specialized groups like the various tour guide associations and tour operator associations. These organizations are vital because they give a collective voice to the professionals on the ground. For example, guide associations provide a platform for guides to advocate for better training, fair wages, and ethical standards across the industry.
However, when we talk about the tourism pyramid, there is an interesting shift in perspective. While the ministry and the BTB might be the administrative heads, many industry veterans argue that the tour guide actually sits at the very tip of the pyramid. This is because a tour guide spends about 80% of their time with the visitors. Neither the minister nor the officials at the BTB have that level of direct, sustained contact with the guests. This makes the guide the most influential person in the entire structure when it comes to the visitor's experience. This structure also includes every single person a tourist interacts with, from taxi drivers and waitstaff to hotel owners and artisans. Because Belize relies so heavily on word-of-mouth marketing, the behavior of a single individual can impact the entire industry. This is why the organizational structure includes disciplinary measures. For instance, if a guide engages in unethical behavior or mistreats the environment, the BTB has the authority to suspend or revoke their license. This oversight protects the reputation of the entire nation.
In Belize, tourism is an ecosystem where the government, private associations, and individual professionals must work in harmony to sustain the country's leading source of foreign exchange.
Belize is often referred to as a green jewel, and when we look at the environmental profile of the country, it is easy to see why. One of the most staggering statistics about Belize is that over 70% of the nation is still covered by natural vegetation. This means that nearly 3/4 of the country remains in its natural state, characterized by what many locals call the natural bush. This high percentage of greenery is a rarity in the modern world, as many other nations have seen their forests and natural habitats cleared for urban sprawl or intensive industrial use.
In Belize, however, large tracts of the country remain wild and untouched by human hands, providing a sanctuary for a vast array of ecosystems. This commitment to the environment is not just an accident of history, it is backed by law. Approximately 47% of Belize's territory is officially designated as protected areas. This is a remarkable figure that places Belize at the forefront of global conservation efforts. When you compare this to the rest of the world, very few countries have set aside nearly half of their land for the preservation of nature.
These protected zones ensure that the biodiversity of the region is maintained, allowing wildlife to thrive and providing a stable foundation for the country's burgeoning ecotourism industry. When we look at how people fit into this landscape, the population density statistics tell a fascinating story. Currently, the population of Belize is estimated to be between 400,000 and 450,000 people. While that number is growing, the overall population density remains incredibly low, at just 14.1 people per square kilometer.
To put that into perspective, neighboring countries or regions in Central America can have densities reaching hundreds or even thousands of people per square kilometer. In the Belizean countryside, that number drops even further to just 5.2 people per square kilometer. This means that for many visitors and residents alike, the dominant impression of Belize is one of vast open space and quiet natural beauty. The distribution of this population is also quite specific. About 34.8% of the population is considered urban, meaning they live in clustered towns or the primary city. The remaining population is spread across various villages, but even then, people tend to congregate in specific regions based on the quality of the land. Most of the population is concentrated in the northern plains, the southern coastal plain, the Belize River Valley, and the Stan Creek Valley. The reason for this concentration is almost entirely agricultural. People live where the jobs and the resources are. In the north, the sugar industry drives settlement, while in the Stan Creek and southern areas, citrus and banana plantations are the primary economic engines.
Interestingly, while the country is covered in lush vegetation, 66% of the land is actually considered marginal or inappropriate for large-scale agricultural development. This limitation has played a significant role in keeping the country so green. Because so much of the soil is not ideal for farming, large swaths of land have been left in their natural state or placed under protection. This balance between small, concentrated agricultural hubs and vast, protected wilderness areas is exactly what gives Belize its unique environmental character.
It is a place where nature still holds the upper hand, and where the human footprint is carefully managed to preserve the very beauty that defines the nation.
To understand the physical identity of Belize, we have to look at how its land is organized. Despite its relatively small size of just under 9,000 square miles, the country is home to a staggering variety of environments. In fact, 70% of Belize is still covered by natural vegetation, and nearly half of the entire nation is protected by law. This high percentage of wild, untouched land is divided into 4 major landscape categories: the coastal zone, the northern lowlands, the southern coastal plain, and the Maya Mountains.
Starting at the edge of the mainland, the coastal zone runs the entire 174-mile length of the country. This region is a complex network of lagoons, over 200 islands known as keys, and the magnificent Mesoamerican Barrier Reef. A defining feature of this zone is the mangrove forest. Mangroves are essential to the ecosystem because their roots act as a natural nursery, protecting young fish, crabs, and reptiles from larger predators until they are strong enough to venture into the open sea.
This zone is not just a biological hotspot, but also the primary driver for maritime tourism. Moving inland into the north, we find the northern lowlands. This area is characterized by relatively flat terrain and swampy patches, but it is also home to some of the most fertile soil in the country. Because the landscape is low and the climate is hot and tropical, it serves as the agricultural heart of Belize. Here, industries like sugarcane, beans, and cattle ranching thrive. Interestingly, the vegetation in the north is often shorter than in the south, usually topping out at about 40 feet, because the soil is thinner and sits atop a heavy base of limestone.
As we head toward the southern part of the country, the landscape transitions into the southern coastal plain. This area consists of a narrow stretch of savanna that quickly gives way to the foothills of the mountains. This region receives significantly more rainfall than the north, often over 160 inches a year, which makes it ideal for growing citrus and bananas. When you drive through this area, you see a dramatic shift in altitude as the flat plains meet the rising slopes of the interior.
Finally, we have the Maya Mountains, which represent the most rugged and dramatic terrain in Belize. This range is home to Victoria Peak, standing at 3,680 feet, and the famous 1,000-foot falls. While it is named for 1,000 feet, the waterfall actually drops over 1,600 feet, though much of it is hidden by the dense forest canopy. The Maya Mountains are also famous for their extensive cave systems. These caves were formed over millennia as acidic rainwater dissolved the calcium carbonate in the limestone, creating the subterranean wonders that were once sacred to the ancient Maya. These 4 distinct regions, the reef-lined coast, the agricultural north, the rainy southern plains, and the mountainous interior, together form the diverse geographic tapestry that defines the Belizean experience.
Now, let's focus our attention on one of the most iconic and biologically significant regions of the country, the coastal zone. This area is a true crown jewel for Belizean tourism, stretching approximately 174 miles from the northern tip of Corozal all the way down to the Toledo district in the south.
When we talk about the coastal zone, we are referring to a complex landscape that includes the mainland shoreline, the vast inner lagoons, and the hundreds of islands or cays that dot the Caribbean Sea.
The centerpiece of this region is the Mesoamerican Barrier Reef. This massive coral system begins up in Quintana Roo, Mexico, and runs the entire length of the Belizean coast before moving toward Honduras. It holds a place of global prestige as the longest barrier reef in the Western Hemisphere and the second largest in the entire world, surpassed only by the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. Because of its incredible biodiversity and ecological importance, it has been designated as a World Heritage Site. This means the international community recognizes it as a treasure that must be protected for all of humanity. Within this marine environment, you will find 3 distinct atolls: Lighthouse Reef, which is home to the world-famous Great Blue Hole, Glover's Reef, and the Turneffe Atoll. Beyond these, there are over 200 smaller islands, including well-known destinations like Ambergris Cay and Cay Colker. These areas are magnets for visitors who come to witness the rich variety of marine life, from colorful tropical fish and rays to majestic sea turtles. The economic value of this reef is immeasurable, as it supports the fishing industry and provides the backdrop for world-class snorkeling and diving activities. However, the health of the reef depends heavily on another vital part of the coastal zone, the mangrove habitats. Mangroves cover many of the cays and the low-lying coastal areas. They act as nature's nursery. The complex root systems of these trees provide a safe haven for young fish, lobsters, shrimp, and crabs, protecting them from larger predators until they are big enough to venture out into the open ocean. Without these mangroves, the reef's fish populations would struggle to replenish themselves. Beyond their role as a nursery, mangroves protect the coastline from erosion and storm surges, and they serve as a habitat for countless birds and reptiles. It is also important to recognize the environmental challenges facing this zone. Issues like the recent sargassum phenomenon, where massive mats of seaweed wash ashore, can disrupt the delicate balance of the mangroves by releasing methane and blocking sunlight.
Pollution and human development also pose risks. As future guides and stewards of this land, understanding that the reef, the lagoons, and the mangroves are all interconnected is essential. By educating visitors about how the nursery of the mangroves feeds the beauty of the reef, we ensure that the coastal zone remains a vibrant, living ecosystem for generations to come. Moving into the northern lowlands, we find ourselves in a region characterized by its vast, flat landscapes and fertile soils. Unlike the rugged terrain of the Maya Mountains, this area is a low-lying expanse that serves as the agricultural heart of Belize. The geography here is dominated by limestone wetlands and a tropical climate that is notably drier than the south, receiving between 60 and 70 inches of rainfall annually. This specific environment has made the northern districts of Corozal and Orange Walk the primary hub for the nation's sugar industry. As you travel through these plains, you will see endless fields of sugarcane, which remains one of the country's most vital economic pillars. Beyond sugar, the region is a powerhouse for diverse farming, producing citrus, beans, and supporting a robust cattle industry. The human landscape of the northern lowlands is just as rich as its soil. This area is a true melting pot, reflecting a unique blend of ethnic groups that have shaped the local culture. The majority of the population is mestizo, a heritage resulting from the mixture of Spanish and Maya ancestors.
Many families here can trace their roots back to the caste war of 1847, when thousands fled the conflict in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula to find peace in Belize. Alongside the mestizo community, the north is home to Yucatec Maya and significant populations of Mennonites, particularly in communities like Blue Creek and Shipyard. You will also find Chinese, Arab, and East Indian communities, all contributing to a vibrant social fabric where Spanish and English are frequently used interchangeably. For those interested in the ancient world, the northern lowlands boast some of the most impressive archaeological sites in the country.
Perhaps the most famous is Lamanai, situated along the banks of the New River Lagoon. Its name, which translates to submerged crocodile, reflects the site's close connection to the water. Lamanai is unique because it was occupied for thousands of years, stretching from the pre-classic period all the way into the time of Spanish contact. Reaching the site is an adventure in itself, often involving a boat trip down the New River, which is the only river in Belize that flows from south to north. Further north in the Corozal district, we find Santa Rita and Cerros.
Santa Rita was once a powerful Maya stronghold and the center of the ancient Chetumal province. It is historically significant as the site where the mestizo race was born through the marriage of a Spanish sailor and a Maya princess. Meanwhile, Cerros is a rare coastal trading center located right on the edge of the Caribbean Sea, offering a glimpse into how the ancient Maya utilized the coast for commerce. Together, these sites and the surrounding agricultural lands define the North as a region where deep history and modern industry live side by side.
The Maya Mountains represent a dramatic shift in the Belizean landscape, moving away from the flat coastal areas into a region of rugged terrain and significant elevation. As you travel through the southern and western parts of the country, the horizon transforms into a series of rising foothills that lead toward the high peaks of the interior. The most iconic of these is Victoria Peak, which stands at 3,680 feet. While Doyle's Delight is technically the highest point in the country, Victoria Peak is the landmark most recognized by the public and serves as a major destination for serious hikers. Reaching the summit is a significant undertaking, typically requiring a 5-day journey through the wilderness, but it provides an unparalleled view of the surrounding mountain forest. Nestled within these mountains is another spectacular feature known as the 1,000-foot Falls. This name is actually a bit of an understatement, as the waterfall is measured at 1,600 feet, making it the highest waterfall in the Central American region. The reason it is commonly referred to by the 1,000-foot figure is that only that portion is visible from the main lookout points. The remaining 600 feet of the cascade disappear into the deep green canopy of the forest below. These mountains are not just beautiful to look at, they are functionally vital to the nation as its primary watershed. Almost every major river in Belize, with the notable exception of the New River, originates in the Maya Mountains. The Macal and Mopon rivers, for example, begin their descent here, eventually merging to form the Belize River. The geological makeup of the Maya Mountains is equally fascinating, particularly its extensive cave systems. The region is largely composed of limestone, which is rich in calcium carbonate. Over millennia, as tropical rain falls, it mixes with carbon dioxide to form a weak carbonic acid. This acidic water slowly dissolves the limestone bedrock, creating the dramatic caves and sinkholes that Belize is famous for. These underground systems are a major draw for tourism, offering visitors a chance to see unique rock formations and ancient archaeological remains. The environment of the Maya Mountains is incredibly diverse, ranging from the cooler, high-altitude pine forests of the mountain pine ridge to the dense tropical broadleaf forests of the Coxcomb Basin. In the southern reaches, the climate is particularly wet, receiving up to 170 inches of rain annually. This creates a moist, lush habitat filled with cahoon palms and emergent trees that can reach heights of over 100 feet. Whether through the height of its peaks or the depth of its caves, this region defines the wild interior heart of the country. Long before the Maya built their towering pyramids, the land we now call Belize was home to nomadic groups of hunters. Around 11,000 years ago, the Clovis culture arrived in this region. These early inhabitants did not live in permanent cities. Instead, they followed the movement of massive animals like mastodons, giant sloths, and camelids across the Bering Strait and down through the Americas. Evidence of these ancient people was discovered in the Orange Walk, where specialized stone tools and artifacts reveal a life defined by movement and survival. These hunters often lived in the entrances of caves, using the natural rock formations for shelter while they tracked the megafauna that provided their sustenance. The major shift in Belizean history occurred when these nomadic groups began to domesticate plants. Through a long process of trial and error, they discovered that certain seeds could be planted and harvested, allowing them to settle in one place rather than constantly moving. Corn, or maize, became the cornerstone of their diet and spirituality.
However, the agricultural revolution in Belize included much more than just corn. They cultivated avocados, chili peppers, annatto, and chaya. These early people also developed a deep knowledge of the medicinal properties found in the jungle, identifying plants like the black whisk to treat stomach ailments. This transition from hunting to farming gave rise to the Proto-Maya, the direct ancestors of the civilization that would eventually dominate the region. By roughly 2000 BC, the Maya had established a firm presence in Belize.
While their history spans several millennia, the civilization reached its spectacular peak during the Classic period, which lasted from approximately 300 to 900 AD. During this era, the Maya were arguably more advanced than many contemporary civilizations in Europe or Asia. They developed a sophisticated governance system where each city-state functioned as its own political entity. They were master engineers who built expansive road systems and impressive architectural mounds that still characterize the landscape today.
Their intellectual achievements were equally staggering. They possessed a deep understanding of astronomy and mathematics, creating complex calendars that tracked solar years and ritual cycles with incredible precision. This golden age was also defined by intense political rivalry and warfare. The great city of Karakol, for example, was a regional powerhouse that engaged in significant power struggles. In 562 AD, Karakol's forces famously defeated Tikal, a victory recorded on stone stelae that serve as the historical records of the time. These conflicts were driven by the search for resources, labor, and the expansion of regional influence. Even today, the legacy of the Maya remains vibrant through their descendants and the 30 living Maya languages spoken throughout the region. From the nomadic Clovis hunters to the brilliant architects of the Classic period, Belize's ancient history is a testament to human ingenuity and the enduring power of a culture that mastered the rhythms of the earth and the stars.